Hello and welcome to the AV Forums podcast for Monday, the 15th of June. For some reason,
no, it's
when
not.
I started talking,
it's the 14th of June.
It's the 14th of June, but it's a week beginning the 15th of June, Steve. So joining me on this edition, Steve Withers.
Laser Envy.
Ed Selly.
You are a sad, strange little man and you have my pity.
And Mark Botwright.
I'm from Play School.
Right, so we're live streaming once again, if you haven't already noticed. The reason things went to pot there was as soon as I said welcome, sound came over. I'd forgotten to hit the button to kick the sound off because our live stream had started. So anyway, we're back. We're live streaming yet again, making mistakes left, right and centre. If it was professional, then, you know, that wouldn't be us. It just wouldn't be us. So, as always, we have our Q&A. This will happen throughout the podcast, usually when we're talking about hardware and movies. But we will have a specific area before we go on to our final subject of the week, which is Tom Hanks, his best and his worst. So if you've got any suggestions for his best and worst, that's films, then wait till the end or put your questions in now. Although if you put your questions in now, they might get lost. So wait till about halfway through and then start. I'll give you a reminder. Also, if you're here, please hit that like button. It's very, very important that you hit the like button. It does wonders for our channel. And also, while you're hitting the like button, why not hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel? Because, again, it does us wonders because it gets our channel and our videos out to a wider audience and hopefully bring more people in to add to the conversation in the community that we have here. And you can also subscribe to the audio version through your favourite podcast provider, main ones being iTunes and Spotify. We are on there, and we're also on most of the other ones as well. In fact, I think we're on everything. So if you can't find us, let us know.
Ring that bell.
Yeah, you can ring the bell as well. And also, if you appreciate the forums and our editorial content and videos, you could consider making a donation. We launched our Patreon campaign, which is patreon.com/AVforums. If you want to support us, that's on a regular basis, then you can head over there and sign up. You can also donate once off directly to us through streamlabs.com/AVforums. And of course, there is the YouTube super chat, and that guarantees that your question will get answered. And we will answer it if you do a guaranteed super chat. We will get round to that one. And if you do feel inclined to support us, then you are contributing directly towards the website. You're improving AV Forums, improving the site speed and features. We can add more editorial content, reviews, news, all that kind of thing. And obviously publish better videos, hopefully. So thank you very much for your support. If you are supporting us that way, it is appreciated. I don't know if there was any donations through the week. If there is, Stuart is going to ping them onto the running order as we go along, and I will read them out if you have done that. Once again, of course, our thanks to the frontline workers. I don't need to go through the whole list of who you are. You know who you are. You're doing excellent work, even though things are starting to open up again and lift some of the restrictions. What you're doing is still appreciated, so thank you very much for what you are doing there. And of course, you can always win stuff on the AV Forums podcast. And this week, Mark's the victor. Mark's going to read them out.
Hang on. Slick.
Always.
Right. Okay. You can win a copy of FLAC Season 2 on Blu-ray. That one closes 30th of June. You can win a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog on Blu-ray. That one runs till 7th of July. Also closing on 7th of July, you can win a copy of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood on Blu-ray. We've got copies of Criterion's May titles. That's Lola Montez, Destry Rides Again, and the Apu Trilogy on Blu-ray. That one closes 25th of June. Got copies of Criterion's June titles. Husbands, Dance Girl Dance, and Scorsese Shorts on Blu-ray. That one closes 7th of July. We've also got Snowpiercer on Blu-ray. That one closes 23rd of June. A copy of The Grudge on Blu-ray. That one closes 16th of June. And a copy of 1917 on Blu-ray. That one also closes 16th of June. And we've got a copy of Doolittle on Blu-ray. Closes on 20th of June. And it says, in order to enter this competition, you will need to use the following question to pick the correct answer in the competition link in the description. I take it that's something you're doing, Phil?
What's that?
All right.
No, you read the question
all right,
out,
fair enough.
And they go and find the answer.
Which of these films was Robert Downey Jr.'s first cameo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Okay. Thanks, Mark. That competition closes Thursday, so good luck for that. And the way that works is that's a question that you need. So you can now go over to the competition page and pick the correct one. And hopefully you'll win something. And don't forget, all competitions are eligible to AV Forums members, resident UK. That's basically everybody but myself. And previous competition winners, Mark.
Yep, Captain Archive won a copy of The Boys on Blu-ray, and Migman won Bloodshot on 4K Blu-ray, which was our last podcast exclusive prize.
Thanks very much for reading that out. That is appreciated. It wasn't like you were reading it out. It came across natural. So thanks very much, Mark.
I'll get me glasses next time.
Right. So what have you been up to this week? What's caught our eyes in terms of AV and the hi-fi news and so on? Well, there's a big hi-fi story out there. Or is there? Because Sound United came out on, I think it was midnight on Friday night, Ed?
It was late, yeah.
It was late, because I was just about to go to bed and the email dropped with the press release, because obviously it was for US time, with Sound United saying that they are in discussions to buy Bowers & Wilkins. And then we had the reply on the Saturday from Bowers & Wilkins saying, oh, hang on a minute. This is maybe not going as quickly as it's been made out in the press release. So what is going on, Ed? Do you know?
No, is the honest answer.
Okay.
No. There's obviously reality lies somewhere between these two positions. Bowers, even though their press release was decidedly cooler than the Sound United one, make no bones about the fact they're in negotiations to see where this leads. But they are, at the moment, they're not seeing it as a done deal. And to be honest, let's go back to negotiations 101. You wouldn't necessarily want to portray it as a done deal until such time as it is, because who knows, there could be another suitor waiting in the wings. Bowers has had an interesting / turbulent 24 months. They were actually slightly longer than that. They were mysteriously taken over by a sort of California equity group who had a background more in software than other sort of audio equipment, or indeed any other form of hardware. And that sort of came to quite an abrupt end. I think less than a year ago. I'm a bit loose on the timings. And they sort of reasserted independence and so on and so forth. But this is, whether from the point where they asserted independence again, they've been, I don't know, flirting with other organisations with a view to sort of forming a larger organisation, I don't know. Sound United, I did flippantly make a comment on Facebook. They have a slightly Pokemon trainer attitude towards brand acquisition. They sort of seemingly got to catch them all. It's not, as many people have already pointed out on the forums and elsewhere, they're not exactly short of speaker brands. They've got Polk Definitive Technology, and there's another one, and I can never remember which one it is. Boston Acoustics. That's it. Now, cynically, you could suggest that at the very least, adding Bowers & Wilkins would give them a speaker brand that people in Europe have some degree of familiarity with, but nevertheless, it's a fourth speaker brand to add to a portfolio. But having spoken to some colleagues and so on and so forth, it's not like there isn't some good reasons for it. Bowers comes with one of the best names in the business. It is a brand which has a degree of recognition outside of the already committed to hi-fi, a truly magnificent global dealer network, and if you like, it's debatable, and it has to be said, it's questionable just how much of Bowers & Wilkins technology could be easily ported to anything else in Sound United. But nevertheless, they've got access to some very interesting and have developed some very interesting technology. So I can see the logic and I can see the issues. I'm sure that people at Sound United can too. It's their money. And we'll see how it goes. But no, I think it's wrong to portray it as a done deal, because Bowers has made it abundantly clear that it's not. But nevertheless, negotiations seem to be ongoing, and we'll see where it goes from there. Someone threw in the comments, I hope that Bowers is saved. To be clear, we've seen no evidence to the contrary that Bowers is anything other than perfectly buoyant and profitable in its own right. Obviously, in these unusually trying times, there's a lot to be said for the joining of forces and so on and so forth. But it's not to say that Bose is a basket case, because they really, really aren't. They're, you know, an ongoing and quite a desirable acquisition. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't think it's a done deal, and it's not to say that immediately there's a logical path about what happens next, even if they are purchased by Sound United.
Yeah, it's an interesting brand. It's a brand with lots of heritage, and it has its fans as well. I mean, people have been buying products from them for a number of years.
Me.
I think, yeah, I mean, one of the first big systems I ever bought was a 600 series speakers. I think the last 12 months has been interesting in terms of the products that they've tried to release, because they have been a little bit on the, well, who's this actually for side of things.
We have to let's not mince our words here, because we can say this with the benefit and the you know, we have reviewed the products, we have reached these conclusions. Formation might best be seen as a bit of a misfire. For every Formation product that is extremely good, and I got the good ones, Duo and Wedge are extremely good. They have limitations which have been partially addressed and appear to be in the process of being further addressed, but they're good products. They stand comparison to other things at the same price. Steve has had a more interesting set of experiences with products where it's hard to exactly understand who they were targeted at and why they reached the decisions that they did. The problem I see here, and again, I need to stress that this is, you know, based on nothing more than just sort of looking at this from having very little more information than anybody else. I don't understand. I mean, if you've got HEOS in your platform stuff already, I don't necessarily, other than the exceptionally low latency that Formation has as part of its, and that's only really applicable if you're doing full house multi-room or you want two products in the same room. I don't necessarily see Formation having any sort of key advantages that HEOS doesn't. So I have to be honest, it could well, if Sound United did take Bose and Wilkins over, I don't necessarily see a bright and shining future for Formation. But that's speculation. I need to be, we're on video and we're live. I need to be very clear. That's based on nothing more than speculation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all we have is the press release that everybody else can read on the forums. News stories at the side of the video there if you're watching live, or you can go on the homepage and it should be there, or certainly click on news and you'll find it, and you'll get all the information that everybody else has got at the moment. And it was updated. So
there's some other challenges as well, just thinking about it. I mean, obviously, Bose has been distributing Rotel for donkey's years.
Yeah.
I mean, what on earth happens with that relationship? Because I can't imagine for a second that the company that owns Denon and Marantz desperately wants to then start distributing Rotel products as well. So there's fallout. There's potential fallout for other people involved in this as well. So we'll have to see how that pans out as well.
Yeah. Okay. What else have you been up to, Ed? Actually, I'm going to ask you this straight off the bat so we don't bore Steve, because we know he doesn't like talking about motor vehicles. Yeah. He's got a smile. Good.
I don't like talking about motor vehicles on an AV podcast.
No. Okay. Well, see these things? Put your fingers in them for a second. Right. So, Ed, you're going to give us a Doug score and the quirks and features of your new Seat. You've had it a week.
Yeah, quirks. It hasn't actually. Do you know what? It compared to the last car, it is admirably free of quirks. It does all the things it's supposed to do. The most exciting and AV related discovery was earlier today when I saw a little snippet on a comment on the internet, and they're absolutely right. If I stick an SD card in the second slot in the glove box, it plays high res FLAC. It's my first hi-fi car.
Well, there you go.
Which is surprisingly entertaining. And yes, someone's just asked, did I find the slot for the key for my car? I didn't, but someone at SEAT told me where it was. So that's fine. The thing is, I've not driven it a huge amount over the course of the week because we're still in partial lockdown. There's not a huge.
Come on, we saw the photos earlier this week of the.
Well, you see, that's something I did discover. I was
testing your eyesight, were you?
Yes, I did a quick Dominic Cummings, and but I parked it up after coming back from the supermarket, and it proudly announced that it was doing 19.5 miles to the gallon, which is more akin to what sort of Phil's car does.
Hey, don't drag my car down. I'm 24. Average.
Well, I'd forgotten
55
Ford,
average miles.
Yes, exactly. But
Yeah,
the thing is,
different.
I don't know. I think Steve's is the same as my old car and Phil's car. It does a lifetime average miles to the gallon. So if you bring it up, it shows you what it's been doing indefinitely. The Volkswagen products, they show you the miles per gallon on that trip. So if, theoretically speaking, you'd been chasing after an older spec Civic Type R for a bit between roundabouts, you'll do 19 miles to the gallon. So that is what it is. That's fine. But no, it plays high-res FLAC. And the other thing I would say, after 3 years of having a car where the air conditioning was, to steal a Clarksonism, like having an asthmatic man with a straw blowing on you, this car blows freezing cold air at you. It's really, really pleasant. So I
cold.
Well, yeah, but no, I have no worries about the heater at all, Steve. I don't know if you have you owned a Volkswagen or a Skoda at any time in your
Audi. Is that the same group? Yeah.
Surely, if it was anything like anything else I've ever driven from them, the heater has two settings: off and molten lead.
Surface of the sun.
Yeah, so I've no worries at all about the heater at all, and there's heated seats just in case.
I've got to say that my S3, the aircon, I just left it on all the time, aircon, even in the winter, because it doesn't then steam the windows up. It doesn't.
Yeah, but that's so many cars are designed to only demist with aircon. And the only other thing I would say is that I had seen comments online that it's normal. The amount of heat the outside of it throws off is unbelievable. You park it up and the fans go for about 15 minutes. It's like, whoa, that's quite surprising. But no, it's all apparently normal, and I might switch it to waterless coolant. But no, the car is fine. I'm doing 140 miles in it on Tuesday. So we'll see if it does more than 19 miles to the gallon, which would be nice.
You coming up to Barnard Castle, are you?
No. Barnard, it wouldn't get anywhere near Barnard Castle in 140 miles. I'm visiting a hi-fi dealer for the first time since lockdown began. I'm quite excited. And then otherwise this week I've been getting some products in for you guys. There's two cracking integrated amplifiers here. One at 2,000 and something, and one at a quite hefty £7,000. But they've got the sort of post-AV features that we were talking about in the earlier column. And there's a pair of headphones here. And they're a very special pair of headphones. I'm going to say nothing more than that, other than the fact that I know for a fact when the review goes live, the first 5 comments will be people going, how much?
Yeah. I think the comments to that review are going to be really entertaining, which is what I'm looking forward to, because, it's a bit of a hefty price tag on that one. So, Mark is on the podcast this week. Kaz isn't here. He's got other things he needs to take care of, but Mark is along.
Lots of people saying echo. Now, is it just me, or is it Phil as well?
Ed sounds like he's in the toilet. Yeah, and I can hear echo also now. Okay, it happened. Right, so we'll try and fix that. Stuart's aware of it. He's just told me in my ear that it was when Steve disappeared. So hopefully when Steve comes back from whatever Steve's doing.
Steve.
Yeah, it's all Steve's fault.
Yeah, it is. He got in a hissy fit because we were talking about cars and he's disappeared. Right, Mark, welcome to the podcast this week. Some actual gaming news to talk about as well. So first of all, what have you been up to?
Very little. I've been attempting to better my cooking skills during lockdown, because I feel like I've fallen into a rut of kind of risotto, curry and bolognese and kind of, mix them around. So I've been trying to teach myself to cook the perfect calzone.
Ooh.
Yes, because the local Italian had kind of shut down. And results have been mixed, I think it would be fair to say. Well, because the first one started when there was no flour anywhere. So I foolishly decided that I might try and use some free from flour I had in the cupboard. And
I bet that went well.
Yeah, I followed the recipe perfectly, but it doesn't have any elasticity to it. So it came out. Do you remember in The Fly 2 when Eric Stoltz's dog comes out Inside Out?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It was less. I didn't eat it. It was more like a mercy killing, you know. But I want to the third one I made today, and I'm getting there slowly. You know, if this lockdown lasts till Christmas, I'd be all right. But yeah, that's kind of the big news from me. And I had a KFC the other day.
I had my first McDonald's yesterday.
McDonald's, Ed. Okay.
The queues are still massively
not round here. Actually, we're back into we're back into normality. But the boy was, rattling for a Happy Meal, and I thought it was worth it. And
chuck some carbs and processed meat down him.
Exactly. He then had some vegetables for his tea, so it was all fine. It was my first, to say, in months, and it was, all right. And that's actually me sorted now for another 4 months of McDonald's. I can't say that I won't need a KFC at some point, but I'll need to be properly hungover before a KFC seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
So
no, I've got to say, I mean, the queues were enormous when they all opened back up. But now I was driving past yesterday, and if you wanted to go and have one, you could quite easily, because the queues are just not there anymore, because they're now all open and it's gotten back somewhat normality now. The queues have disappeared, which is good.
Didn't they? I don't know about anywhere like, or if it's nationwide, but I know that the ones in Milton Keynes, they're running a restricted menu.
Yes.
So if you turn up and want 9 fillet of fish, you'll be told in no certain terms that no, it just.
I'm guessing no one's ever ordered 9 fillet of fish from McDonald's.
No, I grant you that that's a rare occurrence. But as you know, even ordering one of them causes the kitchen to
you've got to wait
into
half an hour.
So, so in other words, I think they've streamlined. I mean, they've kept certain vegetarian options because you don't want to be seen as offering
a fillet of fish counts as a vegetarian option.
No, but I mean, they've got rid of some of the more esoteric items on the menu, and they've streamlined it, and I think that's helping with the whole speed business.
So McDonald's, I'm making my own burgers these days.
Okay. Well, I generally do as well.
Save a fortune.
Well, no, exactly. But if you're 6, Steve, I dare say that your burgers might probably have things that you don't want when you're 6, and they almost certainly don't come with a toy.
I'd love to see the toy Steve would make.
It's a welfare burger, granted, but
Okay, Mark, we were talking about gaming. So there's some kind of new console or something or other being revealed.
Something like that. Yeah. PlayStation 5 reveal event was typically from Sony. It was late. But the kind of, they showed off some games, and that's what everyone wanted to see. So you're going to have another Ratchet and Clank, and there'll be a sequel to Horizon, which everyone naturally assumed there would be. Then quite a few kind of more low-key games. They're obviously going to pace themselves in the run-up towards the holiday season to when it's actually being released. We've got confirmation that there'll be a digital edition, kind of without a disc drive. You'll have the 4K UHD drive in the standard console. No mention of price whatsoever. I think people are braced for it. Beyond that, there wasn't a kind of a great deal to talk about.
Are you going to talk about the fact that it's the ugliest looking thing I've ever seen?
I was going to get
from the Xbox, which is even uglier.
No, I was going to get onto this because I didn't like the look of the controller to start with. The white, I think, looks quite cheap and nasty.
It'll get dirty quickly.
The console is so ugly; it's unbelievable.
That is not going in my home cinema or my lounge.
No, this is what I don't understand, because everyone made fun of the Xbox Series X because it's the blackest, boxiest black box you've ever seen. And then you see it next to a picture of the PlayStation 5 and you think, that's a model of minimalism. That actually, you could have that. And I mean, bear in mind, it's supposed to be less powerful than the Xbox Series X, but I think it'll be running at a higher clock speed. And they've done certain comparisons for the size of the disk drive and USBs to give you an idea of scale. And it's going to be huge. And the idea that, this is going to need a lot of airflow around it. And so it's not going to be something you can just kind of stick into a hi-fi unit and then cover up the doors, because you'll hear it going off, I'm sure, like a hairdryer. And they've gone for this kind of strange asymmetrical design. There's no plane of symmetry anywhere on it. And it looks quite bad standing up because it's kind of lopsided, kind of Quasimodo-like with the
It looks
disc
like a
drive.
Wi-Fi router.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it
standing up.
does. It does. That's the sad thing. Or it looks like one of those kind of vertical fans, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
then you see it when they've turned it on its side, so it's lying horizontally, and somehow it just looks as bad. And with people kind of mooting that it might be kind of $699 in dollars terms for the disk drive version, I just can't see how it doesn't look like a premium console to me.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you the demographic for this?
I am absolutely the demographic for this.
Yeah, definitely,
because
Mark.
I
It's
am
owned every single console ever made.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a joke, is it? You actually
No,
have owned them all.
No, it isn't. I'm easily swayed by hype. I have some disposable income, and I've learned absolutely no lessons from being an early adopter for all previous consoles. You know, I'm already beginning the cycle now of seeing games that I think will be launch games, where I kind of develop this Stockholm syndrome of saying to myself, actually, no, I really need that game, and I know it'll be something that I won't play. So it's, yeah, I'm stuck in that cycle right now, but I just there are no words for that design. You know, this is something.
Yeah, but
that
what I meant by that, Mark, was, you know, is it designed for like a younger audience? Are they trying to get into the the younger?
Just because they're young doesn't mean they're blind.
Yeah,
No, but I'm saying that might appeal more to the younger.
yeah,
audience.
but the first on release, you're getting the kind of the whales. You're getting the people who chuck money at gaming and largely who just want to own the latest thing. If you're looking more at, say, kids, that'll be, you would assume, digital edition, or several years or a couple of years down the line when you get a slim edition. That's when consoles, you get that massive spike in sales when it hits a reasonable price point. But usually when a console's launched, it how it looks, okay, it's secondary. But if you're paying serious money for it, and you're going to have it on display, this thing, it baffles me. It genuinely baffles me. Okay. I'm sorry.
So Steve Huxtable says iconic design gets people talking, so job done. Mark Brown says beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Phil Singh says bravo to Sony for being different. You guys are in the minority.
Well, the Ford Scorpio got people talking.
Yeah, that's true, Ed.
Not the minority based on Twitter.
Yeah. So did the what was that Fiat thing, that Multipa thing? Was it?
Yeah.
Had all
at the very least, there was a reason for that. The Scorpio was just horrendous. I mean, if there is a reason for why this looks like it is, someone did ping it up in the comments, and I would like to congratulate Rockstar for deciding that $1 billion isn't quite enough money to milk out of Grand Theft Auto 5.
When you saw that logo come up, the Rockstar logo came up, and everyone was all excited, and then it's no. On another generation of consoles, GTA 5.
A 7-year-old game which first appeared on the PS3 is making it over to PS5 because they just haven't made enough money yet. So, I mean, I salute that. I mean, to be honest, I think that overtakes Brothers in Arms as the most relentlessly milked piece of media of all time. So, well done, guys. I appreciate. I think that's a stellar turn. I'm mostly with you guys on the appearance. I will be fascinated to see what the breakdown of media only, the digital only to drive based ones. Because am I right in thinking the drive is a UHD Blu-ray drive, which does have sort of ramifications for the bulk and the heft of the format itself in terms of it being a readily available sort of source of the means to play it if they choose the one with the drive in it.
Well, it's going to be one of the... Go on, Mark.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I take on board the idea that radical design gets people talking. The only thing I'd say is usually that is either to kind of change someone's mindset about something or to create a splash when you are the biggest games company in the world. And this thing, the reveal was, I think it was the most streamed, highest audience for a live stream of a gaming event YouTube have ever had. And that, that includes all previous E3s and all previous console announcements. So this wasn't like something that wasn't going to go front page if it had been something slightly more presentable. That's all I'd say.
No, I understand where you're saying that. again, myself and Steve had this conversation via email, that when it comes to UHD Blu-ray players, there are very few now on the market because lots of companies have stopped.
Because I looked, Panasonic, UB9000, UB820, and the UB450 are their current lineup. So sort of high-end, mid-range, and entry-level 4K players. Sony have got the X800 still knocking around. That's a few years old now. I don't think it does Dolby Vision. And they've got the X700, which I reviewed a couple of years ago. And then there's a couple of high-end players from Pioneer. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's bringing in a platform to play discs if you go for that version. So that might be appealing to some people. So I take it that your pre-order will be in there straight away as soon as it's announced, Mark.
I mean, probably yes, it will. It will
Not probably.
Are you going for a drive one?
This is the thing. I'm considering. It depends what that price differential is, really. But it still, digital games are just they're prohibitively priced so often. But I've kind of gone past the stage of kind of wanting to go in and to game or somewhere and trade in old games and this kind of stuff. So it all depends kind of how they build it up. But it should also be said, I mean, the games looked fantastic. Ratchet and Clank looked kind of, at times, when you kind of went for a freeze frame, it was almost kind of early Pixar-esque. And they were really pushing this idea that the solid-state drive is going to be kind of industry-leading at the time of release. And it's the ability in this game to kind of shift between realms, just, that you can go from one world to another just in an instant. I think that's going to be their kind of huge selling point.
Right, so I mean, obviously things are going to move quite quickly on that. When is it due to appear, Mark? I mean, obviously COVID's going to have pushed things around, but did they give any indication?
I think we're still, holidays is usually when they say, and that tends to mean sometime around kind of early mid-November, maybe late November, but sometime around there usually. So it gets a good run into Christmas.
Yeah, right, good stuff. So that's PS5. Yeah, everybody's split opinions. I'm just looking through the chat and lots of people liking it here, but us on the podcast, maybe not so much. Just quickly, I need to mention that Wayne Mole has donated £10. Thank you very much, Wayne. And everybody that's on watching at the moment, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, if you like what you're seeing at the minute. Like I said earlier on, it really does help the podcast. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Mark, also Premier League's coming back. I thought it was this weekend. I was thinking, great, I can try out the Skybox and HLG, HDR and all the rest of it, but it's not starting until midweek. Yes, but there's going to be a huge amount of games running at all different times. You used to have the thing where you couldn't show 3 p.m. kickoffs and everything. I think that's out the window now. Yeah.
All 92 games will be available to see across BT, Sky, BBC as well, Amazon Prime. I think they've got a couple of games. The bulk of it will be Sky though, but they have got, of the 60 odd games, they've got 25 that will be free to air on terrestrial TV on their Pick TV channel. So if you're looking for a kind of breakdown of all the different games and you see kind of a list and it just says Sky Sports, it's worth investigating further because lots of things are listing Sky Sports, but it's on Sky Sports, but also on Pick TV for those 25 games. And I guess the big thing that they're touting right now is I think what they call in quotes an interactive crowd, which in short it's working with EA and the FIFA games to create crowd noise. And BT have had decent feedback from when they've tried it. And from I think it's just sorry?
From who? People who have actually heard a crowd before, or other software engineers?
No, but people, I think they've tried it with a couple of Bundesliga games, and people quite enjoyed it. It's one of those things where football's not going to be the same without a crowd. We all know that. It's a case of you're making the best of a bad situation. And huge amounts of games running through for 6 weeks from 17th of June all the way through to the end of July. Yeah, and that's pretty much my summer sorted.
No, I said Sky HLG. I don't know that for certain. I am just assuming that that's going to happen. But normally they are 4K stream. If you start watching on Sky Sports, it comes up telling you that it's if your box is compatible and you've got a 4K TV, it will tell you it's in 4K. When you press that, it also appears in Dolby Atmos. So my assumption is that when you press the button to go to UHD and Dolby Atmos, it will be in HLG. I'll test it out on Wednesday. I need to test it out on Wednesday because this LG is going back on Friday, so need to be quick with that one. But yeah, it's interesting. Just while we're talking about HDR and Sky, if you have a box that's not compatible, Sky have come up with an upgrade package, but it's going to cost you 50 quid, which if I'm going to give you my personal opinion, this is not the opinion of AV Forums, I think that is ridiculous, because the people who are suffering at the minute with this are people who have paid a fortune to be early adopters. To get Sky Q in, to get 4K broadcasting into their homes. And these people are AV Forums members. And you don't own the boxes. Now, if you own the boxes, fair enough. If you're buying the box and it's 50 quid to buy a newer box, then fair enough. But you don't own the boxes. Sky own the boxes. So when you cancel, they ask you to pack them up and they come round and pick them up because it still belongs to Sky. Yet Sky want you to pay 50 quid for an upgraded box. I just think that's daylight robbery. And again, my personal opinion, not the opinion of AV Forums. I think it's terrible, and I would like Sky to reconsider what they're doing here, because basically, if you annoy the early adopters, when you come up for new technology next time around and you're looking for people to be paying the big ticket prices, which helps you pay for your R&D costs, you might actually find that there's not a lot of early adopters willing to take that risk. We do know now and again that early adopters do pay the price. Me, Steve, Ed, everybody on this podcast has been in that position where we have bought products with our own money and then found that several months or maybe a year or so down the line, it's obsolete because something else has come along. That does happen if you're an early adopter now and again. But I just think this approach from Sky is not the right way to do it. I think you've got better means around for your customer service and everything else. So it'd be nice if Sky would reconsider what they're asking people there, because 50 quid for a box that you don't own, I just think is,
well, it's
like
anecdotally interesting to compare to people like LG. I mean, I'm still impressed at the number of apps that get added to my multi-generations old television. It certainly encourages me to probably consider them for my next one, because they're still providing, software and support for what is now a product well outside warranty and, superseded by 4 different generations of television.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, LG, if they can do it, they have been very, very good in that respect, issuing firmware updates and so on. So, yeah, kudos to them for that. What's your view, Steve? Because I know you're not a Sky fan anyway, but if you were borrowing a box from Sky to watch, it just seems a little bit wrong, doesn't it?
Well, my views on Sky, and this doesn't surprise me at all. It seems. You'd think it's the same thing as what was the reason why you originally stopped your subscription, wasn't it? It was because, you find out that if you're a new subscriber, you're getting these amazing deals, but your existing subscribers get screwed. And this is just another example of them basically screwing early adopters who were first on board with Sky Q and their new boxes. And then they find out they can't do certain features. Now, I'm not saying that the box necessarily had to if it was an early box, but they could have just swapped it out for them. Like you say, it's not like they even own the box themselves. So paying for an upgrade to a box you don't own, I think, is just taking the mickey.
Mark Brown has just gone, I think Sky is saying 50 quid charge for the engineer to fit the new box. Well, that's fair enough, but in that case, there should be a waiver for that if you're happy enough to do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it is. I think that it's more than just that as well.
And Stephen Huxtable asks, will Formula One be in HLG? Usually I know this one, even though I'm not a Sky subscriber. Formula One is not shot by Sky. F1 TV is a company in its own right. So nothing this season, as far as I know, is going to be in HLG because they aren't shooting in HLG yet. I believe it's being looked at for obvious reasons, given the speed that the damn things move around at. F1 TV is much more interested in high frame rate.
Yeah, that'd be more interesting.
And
I think
they are. I don't know where they are in development of that, and I need to stress I'm not saying it's coming anytime soon, but they're much more interested in high frame rate. And I have to be honest, I think it would be a phenomenal demonstration of the technology for it to be used.
If they can do it, then that'd be great. But again, it's one of those wait and see issues at the minute. But yeah,
but a lot of the one of the big things, just back on football, which is that the broadcasters have had a big hit in their pockets from people cancelling subscriptions and that kind of thing, and it was always likely to get passed back at some stage, and it feels like this is one of those instances.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, and this was another reason why I left Sky originally, was I stopped my sports because I had no interest. I wasn't watching it. But then they kept bumping up the entertainment packages, but you weren't getting anything extra with the entertainment packages. All they were doing to bump the prices up was so they could afford to buy the next Premier League rights when they came through. So actually, subscribers that weren't subscribing to sports were ending up paying for what was going on with the sports. So yeah, that was another reason why I decided to leave. But it's great to have the Premier League back for people who are into it. I think it'll be quite entertaining if form has gone out the window and Liverpool don't manage to win the first few games. I think you're. I think that'd make it quite interesting, wouldn't it? Really?
No.
So how many points do you need, Mark, to win the league?
3, isn't it?
6.
Oh, was it
6
points?
points.
You've got to win 2 games then, basically.
2 wins, yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll do it. I'm sure you've got some easy wins.
Put your neck on the line there, Steve.
I couldn't care less. Absolutely couldn't care less.
We kind of gathered that. So let's move on to something that Steve might be interested in, or you might not. I don't know. Panasonic finally announced the HZ980. Now, myself and Steve knew this was coming along because I got all the details.
Anyone could have guessed it too, based upon last year's lineup. What
happened was we were given all the details at the launch event, and I was about to tweet all the information about the HZ980, at which point I was told not to do that because they wanted to hold back just to finalise some details. So we did know it was coming. It's taken a little bit longer than we thought, but obviously with what's going on, I'm not surprised at that. And basically, there's not a lot of difference between the HZ980 and the HZ1000. In fact, I've been through the specs, and there wasn't a lot that I could find that was difference.
So the HZ980 and the GZ950, to be honest.
No,
apart from the GZ's got a nicer stand, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've got the HZ 1500 here. I do not like the stand. I like the fact it swivels. It just looks cheap.
It does look cheap. Yeah.
And that's a shame when the rest of the TV is actually really okay. They've taken on feedback from the 2000 from last year and made it look a little bit better with the Atmos speakers and so on. So they've announced the HZ980. It's going to be the cheapest one in the Panasonic range. I wouldn't buy it as soon as it comes out because Panasonic TVs are famous for dropping quite quickly in terms of price, and they tend to find a level after a couple of months. So if you're not desperate for a TV, I would hold back and see what happens with that. But it has Dolby Vision. It has HDR10 Plus. It's got IQ. It's also got filmmaker mode. It's got filmmaker mode. I forget what they call it. The one with the sensor.
Intelligent filmmaker. Is that what they call it?
Intelligent filmmaker mode. It's something like that. It wasn't very catchy at the launch. Not as catchy as IQ, but it's got almost everything on there apart from HDMI 2.1. But then there's only LG really that's got.
But it does all the things you would want a TV to do. That's not 8K, doesn't it? So it's got VRR, ALLM.
I don't think it's got VRR. I'd have to double check that one, Steve. I don't think.
Maybe not actually. I think it's definitely got ALLM, hasn't it? But maybe not.
It has, yes. It's low latency and EARC. But yeah, it's another addition to the OLED range for Panasonic. It's basically a 950 for this year. And like I hinted at, I've got the C10 here for review, 65-inch. I've almost finished all the testing on that one. It measured identical to the TV that Steve reviewed, which was the G10.
It's the same TV, isn't it?
I went and looked at at your graphs and put my graphs up against it, and it was almost identical. Which I would expect that because we asked Neil when we were at CES this year. There's lots of comments over on forums and all over saying that LG graded their panels and the lower grade got put in the lower range TVs, and the better the panel, they went in the higher end TVs. And he said categorically that does not happen. It's the same panel that goes in the whole range. So even up to the most expensive, it's the same panel that gets used. All that's different is the electronics that drive some of the higher end models. There's a slight tweak here and there, but mainly it's design and cosmetics that are different. Obviously the G10, the only difference there is the cosmetics. They've managed to put all the electronics into the TV so you can hang it on the wall. The C10, it's a good TV. There are a couple of issues though. Floating blacks is one of them, which I was quite surprised to see actually, because I missed it on the first look through the TV. It was actually only when I went back to go through things again that, and it was one of the modes that I hadn't calibrated that I noticed it on. So there is some floating blacks there. I'm looking into that in a bit more detail, which is why it's taking a little bit longer with that review, but it should be up. Hopefully by the end of this week. The video might not be as quick as that, but hopefully by the end of the week, because it needs to go back. And I've also got the Panasonic, and I'm going to put them side by side tomorrow. I'm going to set that up to do that.
People are saying, obviously, horrible stand. It's not. I need to stress, it's not a design masterpiece. But if you've got a narrow width TV cabinet, that's a godsend.
Last year's stand wasn't very wide either. It was, but it just looked a bit nicer, a bit more solid, a bit more.
Yes,
it was just a rectangle, wasn't it? Basically a black rectangle, but it was.
I don't know what it is about circular stands. They just look.
I don't like them.
They just look cheap, and
like
again,
cheap monitor, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a personal opinion as well. So I've got to state that design. When it comes to things, it is what some people think is lovely. Other people probably don't. Just in case there's any question, I'm just going to quickly go through and see if there is anything on there. Nope. The only thing is, LG are really missing the BBC iPlayer. I've had the C10 set up, and I still can't get my head around the fact that there is no catch-up services. I'm having an off-board device. Yeah, none at all.
Being charitable for a moment, it's possible, given some of the other things I do for a living have been catastrophically affected by social distancing, and let's be honest, the UK hasn't done brilliantly at this whole COVID business. So if LG's been waiting on, for example, the BBC to be all in the same room to get things agreed and ratified, that's only going to be sort of happening from now.
Yeah, that's true, Ed, but you've got to ask the question, if they weren't going to have Freeview Play this year and they knew they were going to have to recertify this, why weren't they doing it last year? Yeah, ready for this release. You can't launch a UK TV and not have any catch-up.
There's more questions and answers.
What we don't know is how late it was left last time.
Yeah, so let's not speculate. Let's just talk about what's in front of us at the minute. And the fact is, they're not there at the minute. And they're saying they'll come eventually, but when is that in the product cycle? When is it that these things are going to happen? Because at the moment, the C9. If you can get the C9, it looks like a better buy at the minute.
I get the C9. Yeah.
Never buy anything on the idea that something will be updated.
That's very good advice.
Yeah, I learned that lesson last year.
Yeah. That's very, very good advice. Yeah. So you've got to review what's in front of you. And at the minute, that is sorely lacking. And it's something that I always fall back on the services. And I like the services to be on the TV rather than an off-board device. And it's not there at the minute on the C10, so that is a bit disappointing.
Which is surprising for LG, because their support, as Ed mentioned earlier, is normally excellent.
Brilliant.
It's got everything else. Yeah. It's got Now TV, it's got Netflix, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, Disney Plus, Rakuten. It's got the lot.
I don't know. Currently. Is it Apple? I don't know if that's a
no, not on the 7 series. 8 series and on.
So that's the first one that I'm missing. Yes. Not that I actually care, because I've watched Apple TV briefly and it's dull. Yeah. I mean, I did tweet them, because obviously they've paid for Fraggle Rock. It's their first piece of non-Apple television stuff that they've added, and I did say to them, get Airwolf in and we'll talk. But they haven't responded as yet, so we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. Right, what have you been up to, Steve? What have you been looking at? Anything interesting?
Well, as I mentioned last week, I think in the podcast last week, although I'd previously owned it on Laserdisc, DVD, and Blu-ray, I'd never actually watched Days of Thunder. So
you didn't come back to me in the comments. How much do you reckon you spent on the unwatched media version?
Not that much.
So not even the Laserdisc was expensive.
Would have been about 20 quid.
Yeah, it'd be about 20, 25 quid.
Back then it was a single disc laser. It wasn't like a expensive box set. I hadn't spent a fortune, but it was just the way that I kept rebuying it, and I still hadn't seen it. You know what? Really enjoyed it. Good. Controversially, I think I preferred it to Top Gun.
It's interesting. Myself and Kaz were having this conversation earlier on today, because obviously we like to look at what we've put up for the week and how they've performed and so on. And Days of Thunder just hasn't done particularly well with the AV Forum's audience this week, and I don't know why that is, because Top Gun's done big numbers, and War of the Worlds did big numbers and so on, but for some reason Days of Thunder, I don't know why, but again, going back to when the film was released, I don't think it set the box office on fire, and I don't think it had the audience
do particularly well. And I did see a quote from the guy that ran NASCAR at the time, who said the only thing they got right in that film were the numbers on the sides of the cars. And it's very difficult to buy Nicole Kidman as a brain surgeon. She not just because she was about 22, so it seems unlikely that would be the case. But Robert Duvall is just awesome. I forgot that John C. Reilly is in it, because I thought so. I didn't realise when they cast him in Talladega Nights that was kind of a throwback to Days of Thunder. And Carrie Elwes pops up, and Michael Rooker. It's got a great cast, and it is written by Robert Towne, and he can write some of the dialogue. The two scenes where Robert Duvall is just talking to a car are brilliant.
Yes, as monologues go
really
to inanimate objects.
Yeah, he just steals this film, and the picture's awesome. The 35mm, it's some 35mm print and negative, and it looks gorgeous. Looks absolutely gorgeous. And I watched Jaws this afternoon, which looks
that's amazing. Yeah, it is. It really is.
Looks and sounds amazing. And
Stephen Huxtable's just gone, I don't like NASCAR. The problem NASCAR is the cleverest. It's the cleverest stupid sport in the world, because fundamentally, you look at the whole premise of it: go round an oval in a car which appears to have the complexity of a steak and kidney pie, and actually, when you then start digging into it, they are phenomenally in terms of the evolution to what they do and how it works. It's incredible what's been done, but none of this comes across unless you sit down and watch incredibly tedious YouTube videos about staggered aerodynamics and things like that. It's one of those ones where it's forever lost under 8 million beer adverts and the now banned Confederate flag. So
yeah, exactly.
Although actually, I have to say, fair play to NASCAR, because there was one admittedly quite minor driver kicked off going, this is my final season in NASCAR. Just wanted going, yeah, we had to look up and see how you were, see who you were. Bye. Courage of their convictions. I admire that. That's deeply impressive. So
excellent.
Yeah, good.
So before we
I was going to say, sorry, I also watched a couple of streaming premieres that were on in the last couple of days, which I'm sure we can talk about a bit later. But it does bring me on to a news story in the last few days, which is that apparently AMC Odeon are going to be opening up again in July.
Okay. Are you going?
No. I'm assuming they'll have to do the thing where they tape off every other seat and this kind of thing to stagger people and that sort of stuff. So even if they're open and people go to the cinema, obviously that's going to at least halve the box office, I'd have thought. But personally, I'll wait for the discs. It would be good to have films opening in the cinema, even if I'm not going to go and see them, just so they can then have a disc release 3 months later. At the moment, there's nothing to order because nothing's come out.
Yeah,
I'm in the bizarre position where, of course, I won't go to the cinema, but I cannot wait to go to the pub. So it's not like there's actually a social distancing thing going on.
Stuart, can we bring up the poll on that one and put it on the right-hand side for those that are watching live at the minute, just to see what the forum members are thinking about the question. The question was asked, are you going to go when cinemas reopen? I mean, I'd love to go to the cinema. I really would. I really am missing the cinema. And I didn't think I would miss it as much, but I think I got into the habit of going on a regular basis that I'm missing that in my daily routine. So there you go, 50% saying no, they're too worried about catching COVID. Against 25.7% saying yes, I can't wait. So
plus
25% who are a bit like maybe not. Depends on the film.
So there's 30% of people going yes, I'll probably go, versus a selection of people like me who wouldn't have gone anyway, But then there's no I'm too worried, and that's
the trouble is right now there's no time that you can really. You used to be able to pick a time when you knew that a cinema would be absolutely empty.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
why I had my limit.
And now you just there are points where you think, oh, I'll nip to the supermarket now because I think it'll be empty, and then you realise that everyone else who's at home has had exactly the same idea as you, and then there's a massive queue. So it kind of adds another level to the risk there, I guess.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that does play out, and what the numbers are like for people going back to the cinema and so on. It's just, what I'd like to see is more outdoor cinemas. Why can't we introduce them again?
UK weather, I suspect.
Probably.
Atmos is a challenge I find in the outdoors.
Like at the start of the Flintstones.
Yeah, I mean drive-ins. That'd be great because you
just want an excuse to get in your car, don't you? That's all you really want. You're killing two birds with one stone, though, aren't you? You can get in your car and watch a film.
Am I that obvious? Am I? Sorry. Okay.
So what are the cinemas going to do? Sorry, are the cinemas going to kind of like block off various seats?
Well, I think if it's based upon what they've been doing in the States, you every other seat is taped off. So you'd have one seat, taped off seat, and the row behind it will be the alternate. So the seat behind the taped off seat would be.
That's still
that's
well
not 6 feet apart.
Well, they're going to change that to a meter, aren't they? Pretty soon.
Yeah, but they're doing that already with urinals, if you've noticed.
I hadn't noticed that.
I don't know. I haven't left the house since March.
All right. Well, yeah. Fun fact that they're putting plastic bags over urinals.
Is that because you've been on it?
It's going to splash everywhere. Yeah. So yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that happens. But even doing it that way, Steve, they're still too close there, I think.
Well, I mean, that's just based. I was basing that upon what they're doing in the States, and clearly in the States, they basically pretty much given up in terms of trying to do anything.
At the very least, in the pub, I can walk around escaping people with my pint.
Well, when they put up plastic dividers and that sort of stuff in pubs, won't they? That'll be one.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe they'll do that in cinemas.
Horrible solutions coming into play, so we'll see where we go. So.
I don't know. Bring back the old snugs. I used to like those. They go to a pub in Ireland. They got those little snugs in the in pubs. There'd be little.
Yeah, but if a pub's got them, that's great. Trying to suddenly retrofit them to a pub.
They should bring them back and put them in all pubs. That way you can drink without having to interact with any other human beings, which is my idea of a perfect boozer.
Pubs to have different layouts for different requirements. My preferred local in Newport Pagnell has, saloon bar, lounge bar, and I like that very much, but it doesn't have snugs. I like the saloon lounge breakdown, so on and so forth. So don't force your snug doctrine on me.
Right, donations and questions. Graham Cartwright, he's donated £3 through Super Chat. Graham, thank you very much. It is appreciated. Hit the like button as well, please, mate. It does help us if you haven't done that already. And Flipper has given us £10. Thank you very much, Flipper. Top podcast as ever, guys. Thank you. Nope, thank you. If you guys weren't listening, we wouldn't be doing this. So thanks for coming along and joining us live. Or if you're listening to the audio version, it's always good to have you around every weekend. Thank you very much for your donation. And like I say, if you click the like button, if you haven't done that already, that really helps the channel as well, especially the like button, because more people can find us and we can build the community and have more people joining us every week for our discussion points, which is going to move on to music now. So we're going to audio after the video and the games. And Ed's done another article. And if it's anything like your last article, Ed, and I thought it was superb, your last article. I have found so many artists I didn't know existed, or recordings that they'd done that I didn't know they'd done. So thank you very much for your last article. But this one's about easing ourselves back into the world.
Well, I've mentioned this briefly. I wrote about it. I mentioned that I'd written it because I'd written it that day before the podcast. But an interesting facet to my lockdown music listening is that I was listening to more live music, because there's the involvement, the perception of other people, and so on and so forth. And I have to admit, it's not a huge part of my listening under normal circumstances. I like going to live music. I like sitting at home and listening to studio albums. But nevertheless, I found myself listening to more live music, and I was delighted at the response and the feedback from the 50 albums that I did. So these are 50 live albums. Now, this is a slightly different setup to the 50 albums piece that I did, because this involves some big name acts. We've got the Led Zeppelins, we've got the U2s in there, and so on and so forth. We've got Pink Floyd. Steve will be pleased to hear.
Okay.
Although in the case of both U2 and Pink Floyd, there were debates over which live album. I look forward to feedback that I've chosen the wrong one, but I stand by my decisions. This is live albums are much more. I mean, all music is subjective, but live albums are very, very subjective because, I mean, do you want close mic'd to the band with a bit of crowd noise, or do you just want the venue as much of an involved part of what's going on as the music itself? There's no right answer to this, and I think it also depends very much on the nature of the band and the performance itself. But this is not segregated into decades. It simply runs as a chronological undertaking. The oldest album is 1960. The newest one is last year. There are a couple I've missed out. I make no bones about the fact.
Does it include Frampton Comes Alive?
It does.
Excellent. The biggest selling live album of all time. I don't know anyone who's ever bought it.
Well, here's the thing. I mentioned in the piece that it's about the last record you can find in charity shops that's actually good. But I mean, for example, Who Live at Leeds is not in there, and I make no bones about the fact it's one of the very finest live albums of all time, but it's got that faulty cable in it, and it drives me absolutely spare. I cannot.
Is Johnny Cash in there?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, brilliant. And what about Dylan 66?
No.
Metallica?
What?
No, and not Metallica either. Now, I have reasons for this. No. The reason for this is right. Dylan, I'm going to incur wrath here. I'm sorry. No. I'm particularly.
You don't like Dylan in principle?
Not in principle.
Dylan Goes Electric, and the crowd are booing him and calling him Judas. It's an awesome album, and you can hear it. I can't be saying.
Oh no, I'm sorry. If you want antagonistic live albums, there's a Neil Young one that I've put in there, which is the most antagonistic live album of all time. Metallica, Phil, is very simple. If in the fullness of time I did one of these where it's live concert DVD Blu-ray HD Blu-ray, yes, unquestionably. When you strip the video element of these live Metallica exercises, they're not the same thing at all. I mean, and also the other thing, it's the sort of thing where you have to be there to, have your eardrums driven into the center of your brain.
I'm going to disagree with you, but I see where you're coming from. But I disagree with you. You don't need the visuals, because S&M was one of the best-selling albums.
Well, to be honest, it's once again, it's 50, and at one point the list was 110, and I just couldn't be bothered to write 110. I'm very honest. So it's down to 50, and yes, there are omissions. There's ones that I really like that aren't on there, but then equally, I'm hoping that there's an element of discovery, because there's a world of different lives involved in this. There's everything from I believe the largest crowd of any of the albums they're going is 80,000, and there's another one which is done to 150. And obviously, they can't possibly be the same experience, but they're still both magnificent live albums.
Yeah. Ed, it'll be a discovery piece. It always is, and it'll be great. We're just getting in before the comments. You see, we just want to get there before the comments.
Just before we sign off on this, obviously we're now coming out of lockdown. This does mean that products are easing up, and so on and so forth. Really, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to me. I enjoy reviewing products. I enjoy writing music lists. I would be deeply interested in feedback as to whether you'd want an extra review a month, or whether I should keep doing something about music. I'm open to doing either of them. I'm open to alternating it, but feedback in either direction would be welcome, because we are moving back into a more traditional setup. So let's see. I'd be interested to see if people have found them worthwhile.
Well, I mean, if it was me, I'd be saying yes. I'll commission more of these because they've been really good.
You're the one with the checkbook. In fairness,
just from my point of view, just in terms of discovery, Ed, I think it's always good. But yeah, let's hear the input either in the live chat tonight or in the thread, which is already live. If you're watching live, you can go and
very quickly. Simon Turner. Well, it's not a shame that no high quality vids of Led Zeppelin exist in the same way they do for Queen. It's not even the case of that, Mr. Turner. There is Led Zeppelin were untouchable for about 5 years and neglected to be recorded properly at any time during that stage. I mean, even the Led Zeppelin live album that's in there,
the song remains the same.
The song remains the same.
That was shot on film though, isn't it? So
yeah, but it's still far from their best sort of performance.
It's also got those weird film sequences in the middle.
Exactly.
Of the songs,
in the same way, I'm going to annoy you now, Steve. There are many live Bowie albums. But
David Live is a masterpiece, just for the record.
I
love that album.
There's one in there. It's not that one.
Santa Monica's a good one. And Cracked Actor is from the same tour as David Live, but it's the second half of the tour when he'd gone more soul flavored. These were before he recorded them with Young Americans, when it's called the Philly Dogs tour. And that's a brilliant live album too.
Well, you can get annoyed at the choice.
Which one did you pick?
It's Concert from '78.
Stage?
Yeah, Stage.
That's terrible. That's literally the worst Bowie album.
I'm sorry. No, Glass Spiders is the worst.
Well, no, sorry. I meant as in live albums.
No,
Even Glass Spider has more merit than Stages. It's like, who wants to? It must have been a crap show to be at if you had to sit there and listen to him playing, stuff from Low, the second half of Low.
I now know how you feel, Steve, with us talking about cars when you start talking about Bowie.
And then, as I say, the Floyd one. I'm waiting for your.
Well, what did you pick on? So you must have picked the Wall Live. Is there anybody out there?
Is there anybody out there? But then also, just to wind you up, there is a live version of Dark Side of the Moon in there, but it's not performed by Floyd.
Okay, this is going to be interesting reading, but we really need to be moving things on. But one of the things about live, and you've already touched on it with the Metallica stuff, is that sometimes it translates incredibly well to a multi-channel mix. And myself and Steve have been listening to Dolby Atmos music via Tidal. I've been listening via the Apple 4K TV. I assume you're the same. Yeah, I think it's the only device that's still really working properly at the moment. Got to say, Tidal via the Apple box is really good because the video quality, you can watch music videos and stuff, which I hadn't realized you could do that till last night watching on the Apple box. So I've been watching all sorts of playlists of just the videos and stuff, and find it really interesting. But anyway, we're going to talk about Dolby Atmos music. So this is a follow-up because Steve wasn't on the podcast the week that I went through talking about it, and it was the week that it was launched. I've since spent up quite a bit of time. In fact, Friday night, I think I spent about 3 hours or even 4 hours just discovering things, just going through all the playlists that were there. And I found some amazing tracks in Dolby Atmos music, and I also found some that were really quite poor and not a lot of thought had been put into it, which kind of brings me back to, it's not 5.1 or 7.1 because we're used to that, and we're used to hearing instruments from surround speakers and all the rest of it. I think for me, I don't know if Steve's going to agree with this or not, but for me, Dolby Atmos is more about creating, well, the name says it, an atmosphere, a sphere of sound around you. And the thing is that they can place instruments in places of around you where there are no speakers, because it's using an object-based system. It's not a channel-based system. And for me, the best mixes, the best implementation of this is where they use that capability, where it's not coming from any of the speakers. It's actually surrounding you and creating a sphere of sound around you. And some of the stuff's excellent, but I've already spoken about this, so let's hear what Steve has to say about his listening.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't done, I think, as much listening as you have, but I went straight to the classic rock, which was going to be the area I was most interested in. So I immediately listened to...
It's one of the best playlists.
The When Doves Cry mix that you heard at CES, didn't you? That's really great. And you're right. I mean, I always wonder sometimes with any kind of multi-channel mix, who does the mix? What are they using to create the other channels? and how much of that artistic intent is retained from the original album, because obviously most albums are created and mixed for stereo initially. But when done creatively, it can certainly be. So one of the ones that really stood out for me, for obvious reasons when I think about it, but it's a really good. And I'm not a fan of this band, to be honest, but this was quite a good song. I like the song, but I like the way that they used it for Atmos, which is Riders on the Storm by the Doors, where you've got thunder rolling overhead and rain coming down all around you, and that's something that really lends itself to Atmos. And also they got the sort of the chatter in the studio before they start recording it, with Jim Morrison saying this is take 10, we'll never get another take 10. That really the way that the voices were sort of disembodied in the room was really good. You kind of just felt like you were in the studio with them, and that kind of thing really lends itself to it. What else I listened to? Call Me by Blondie. What else was there?
So, some of the best stuff that I found was some of the hip hop remakes. So there's a Public Enemy one there, and it's done classically. So they've taken out most of the music track, and it's a full orchestra with them rapping over the top, and that's astonishing. Really, really good. And there's another one, LL Cool J, Mama's Gonna Knock You Out. Again, they've completely changed that around and used orchestration and so on, and sound effects and that kind of thing, and it just brings that song to life. It's something completely different. So I'm still of the opinion that I was the first week I listened to it, and I've listened to far more now, that when done right, like you say, Steve, when it's mixed properly, when it's mixed for Atmos, and Dolby have been making a big thing, they would through their marketing, but they've been making a big thing that they are getting, where they can, the artists involved in this, and showing the artists what can be done. And during the interview I had at CES, and the video's up on our YouTube channel if you want to watch it with Xavier, but we were talking about, artist creators intent, and he was saying, when we demo this to artists that are around, still alive and interested in remixing, they want to do it because they really see the creative side of it, and it's not just another 5.1 or 7.1 mix. And I think that's the important point to try and get across. It sometimes gets lost because we've had so many attempts at this, doing multi-channel all the way back to Pro Logic, really. There had been live albums and so on that had been remixed and so on. But I think
multi-channel music isn't anything new. Quadraphonic sound was being done on LPs back in the early 70s with the Floyd, and a few other artists as well. So I'd like some more.
Years ago, I did get a demonstration of the quadraphonic Dark Side of the Moon LP on.
I've got the quadraphonic version on a Blu-ray.
Well, I mean, I've heard it on quadraphonic vinyl, and it's like, actually, do you know what? That's not half bad. Quite enjoyed it. But
so I'd like to hear some bands. I enjoyed Poison, by the way. Every rose has its thorn.
Yeah, that's
song,
another good use.
It was a good listen. I'd like to have hear some bands I'm particularly, some of my favorite bands, because obviously a lot of the stuff is music I'm not that familiar with to start with.
Yes, I had that.
So, for example, taking this back to Ed's live albums, the video, the Blu-ray of Roger Waters' The Wall performance is in Atmos, and that sounds absolutely amazing. So the potential certainly there, and particularly with live albums, actually with live recordings in Atmos, really give you the feeling you're in the arena. Could be quite spectacular. So
and the content's been added all the time. So the first week I had a look, there was about 5 playlists. There's about 20 odd now. Some tracks are repeated on them, but there's more and more content being added. So the only thing is, yes, I do agree, because you need the hi-fi Tidal subscription, which is not cheap. But there are some deals on it at the minute. If you have a look at the thread attached to the article on the forums, some people were getting deals for £4.
There are some good deals.
So there are deals out there.
The other thing, I mentioned this in an article 2 years ago, I think. If you compared a video streaming service that had almost everything since 1950, you'd probably pay quite a lot more for it. I mean, this is the thing. We judge music services by unreasonable standards. They don't have, you get stuff on the day of release. It's in the same quality as it's likely to be in any form of physical media. I mean, Tidal they do make a point of trying to approach something along a reasonable royalty payment. That's what you're paying for. So that's I have to say I don't think the lossless services are unreasonably priced, especially given that, as I say, Tidal is the one that's doing the technical innovation.
I just think, Ed, and you hit the nail on the head. There's so many services at the minute, and people's priorities are going to be different.
No, quite.
That paying for Tidal and paying for Netflix, that's a lot of money every month. That's almost a Sky subscription a month. So, Mark, music-wise, multi-channel, Dolby Atmos music. Any interest in this?
Not a great deal, I'm afraid. Keep that short. Well, I did like the sound of what Steve described with Rides on the Storm. Yeah, I do like that track. But beyond that, I'm afraid not.
And musically, yourself, are you a music listener?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was picking Ed's brain, when was it? Sometime around Christmas about kind of connected wireless speaker, that kind of thing that I can use Spotify Connect on. Yeah, and I'm listening to it a hell of a lot more now with that. Just makes it a lot easier. I went for the Revo Super System in the end, Ed.
They're in really nice bits of kit, really impressive. And I love the design aesthetic. They make really attractive stuff.
Yeah, that was the thing that swayed me. Was I do love, goes back to the old Atari 2600 days. I do love a bit of wood on something, but also just the grill. It reminds me of many years ago in my kind of student days. I had an old Roberts radio. I think it was the RM30 or something, and they had that nice kind of metal grill at the front with almost like that kind of greenish glow to them. Like it was something from the deck of the Nostromo or something. Yeah. And I do love something that gives you some of those physical buttons and the like. So, yeah, I've been listening to a hell of a lot more music recently.
You haven't told us what you actually listen. Maybe this could be a competition. Maybe we should get people to
I have a broad musical kind of taste. Everything from I do love kind of old kind of blues, old country, that kind of thing. I'll whistle along to Slim Whitman. I make no apologies. But then, like some of Ed's suggestions about Kamasi Washington, completely kind of, put me off on a completely different thread of music. And the Spotify algorithms are still,
they're untouchable. I make no bones of it. I mean, the only people that get close is Deezer's Flow, but you have to put more time in the first place. You have to have, in many regards, you have to have more knowledge to start with. Feed it that extra knowledge, and it comes back with better suggestions. But I mean, the fact that Spotify's algorithm, even if you give it no further feedback than your weekly playlist, it can still do stuff from that. Is just unbelievable. I mean, when the time comes, we're live. If the time comes and Spotify runs out of investor capital and it's purchased by somebody else, it'll be purchased for that.
Yeah, it really is good when it comes to that kind of thing. I've discovered so much. If it's not Ed, then it's Spotify with its suggestions. So there you go. I suppose we've got to do some movies, even though Kaz isn't here.
This is going to be brief because I'll tell you what, I haven't heard of most of the stuff on this list. Have you?
No, I haven't heard of much of this either. Apart from David Copperfield, it's Armando Iannucci. And that's about it, to be honest with you. But the reviews are
movies this week: Sniper, Assassin's End, never heard of it. The Person History of David Copperfield, which apparently is very good. Radioactive, haven't heard of that. The King of Staten Island, I have heard of it. I don't know much about it, but apparently it's very good. 4K releases, Doolittle. Well, nothing.
Good luck with that.
Me. Birds of Prey, I've seen. I enjoyed that. Looks and sounds great. And Ewan McGregor was good fun, hamming it up something chronic in that movie. And Blues Brothers, which I watched in the week, and that looks really good and sounds fantastic in DTSX.
I've just been entertained because I've just been watching Stuart trying to keep up with you.
Look, we're running long and we've got other things to do. Let's just get through this. Upcoming stuff on streaming services: Sinner season 3, Netflix. Haven't heard of it. Perry Mason on Sky. I also mentioned on Sky Agatha Raisin. There's a new series of that just started, which is shot. I mean, one episode was literally shot next door, so it's shot where I live. And also 7500 on Amazon. Again, I never heard of that. Did anybody watch any of the stuff from Well, Artemis. Did anyone watch Artemis Fowl?
No. But
Poor old Tom.
Tom's review is entertaining.
I watched it on Friday night, and he's pretty bang on the money. I think there's a good 2-hour movie somewhere, but they cut it down to an hour and a half.
We've got a welfare versus quality issue here, haven't we? Because really, Tom's work, when we inflict terrible things upon him, is untouchable.
Excellent.
But we don't want him to suffer an aneurysm.
No.
Did you watch the Five Bloods?
Nope.
No.
Okay. That was better, much better. Spike Lee. But two things that struck me, and both of them were because it's a Netflix movie. I mean, it was shot for Netflix, so it's 2 hours and 35 minutes long. And I just know if it was a theatrical release, he'd have trimmed that down by 20-30 minutes. He'd tightened it up. But I guess he feels the same with the Irishman. It's you kind of think, well, I know. It's on Netflix. I can be as long as I like. And also, because it's on Netflix, he does something that's creative. But basically, when they're in Vietnam during the war, they shoot it 4:3, 16 mil. When they first arrive in Vietnam in the modern day, it's shot scope ratio. And then when they go out into the jungle in Vietnam, they go to 16:9, which basically precludes watching it on a scope ratio screen.
Yeah, at least if it's one of these that changes aspect ratios, they normally frame it 240:1.
Well,
so
that
you know that
fine,
if you blank it off, you're not missing that much. But yeah, when they do it deliberately like that.
Yeah, again, because it was for Netflix, he's obviously thinking, well, 16:9 is the prime ratio people are going to be watching it in, so that's what he's using. I will say Delroy Lindo is absolutely epic in it. His performance is amazing, and if he doesn't get some awards, there's no justice.
I've just seen Martin Hamilton. My Spotify Discover Weekly playlist is polluted with my kids' Disney and toddler disco playlists. My sympathies there. My son uses my YouTube account, so it proudly informs me when braying Americans who yell whilst playing computer games have uploaded more videos of them braying and playing computer games. So we must suffer for the fact that we decided to breed. It just comes with the territory. He's not allowed anywhere near my streaming services. Unfortunately, I was listening to something downstairs and it suddenly stopped and switched over to a completely different piece of music. And I'd forgotten that he's got a Rune app on the iPad I leave him, and he didn't like what I was listening to, so he just flicked it over to White Lies in real time, which I thought was amusing the first time, but I don't know if he did it again, I'd kill him. So,
Before we move on from films and TV and so on, you've been watching anything, Mark? You haven't been around on the podcast for a few weeks. Anything caught your eye? Anything you've been watching?
Stuart's just asking if there's any way I can tackle the light.
Yeah, there was an odd shadow behind you. I didn't want to draw attention to it, but it looked a bit more, yeah.
Okay, exit stage left.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Man versus light.
Okay, so
can I just say that I was delighted to find Mallrats appeared on. I don't know how long that's been on Netflix, but I'd only just noticed it.
I think it's just popped up this month. I mean, unfortunately, Kaz isn't here this evening because we were going to go through what is coming up on the streaming services this month, because Andy has done all of them at the start of the month. So if you want to know what is coming up on the streaming services this month, plan your viewing for the month, then Andy has done those. They're all on the homepage. You can go and have a look at them, and we'll discuss them next week when Kaz is back.
I'm looking forward to watching the new Jay and Silent Bob, because obviously it was on about 3 cinemas.
I have seen it. I got the Blu-ray.
No,
I like Kevin Smith a lot, but I would say I laughed once. The best scene in it is one with Ben Affleck, which is genuinely moving. But otherwise,
look, it's on Now TV. It costs me nothing. I'll get round to.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I'm a huge fan of Kevin Smith, but
all right, fine.
Okay, well, if you're saying that, then Steve, then I'm still going to watch it, but maybe not as soon as I was going to get round to it.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching Mallrats again. What a film!
Really? It's not very good.
No, but I love just. It's
Give me Clark's or Chasing Amy.
You see, I never get that excited about.
Actually, Clark's 2 was actually quite good as well.
Yeah, no, Clark's 2 is really good. Yeah.
And I like Jay and Silent Bob. I like the original Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's just the cameos, if nothing else. I mean, the George Martin,
the Goodwill Hunting scene is
Hunting
fantastic.
2.
Yeah, yeah. Applesauce. You know.
I just adore that film.
Yeah.
Sure, if you don't make with the head.
Right, before we end up saying a line that's going to get us in trouble from that, Mark, your TV stuff now that you've fixed your lighting.
Oh, right. We're largely, you know what? I've been working my way back through all the Forged in Fires I haven't seen.
They've been brilliant recently. They really have.
Well, I'm just working my way back. I'm up to the 2019 season when they're throwing in a lot of. It feels almost a bit like torture at this stage because everything is San Mai or Canister Damascus now, and they're making like you've got a group of 60-year-old men, and you've decided to make them do coal forges outside in 40-degree heat. Unsurprisingly, some of them collapse. But
it's quality TV.
Oh yes, yeah.
It will kill the contestants mainly.
Right. We really need to move on and do some questions because we are rapidly running out of time. And I did put a thing in the chat asking people to put up the questions. So, Steve, have you seen anything that's drawn your attention, first of all?
I haven't seen any questions that seem to be relevant to me. There's a couple there for Mark on it about the PS5. But
okay.
No, have you seen anything, Phil? There's a distinct lack of questions this week, guys. Get out there and lots of questions.
Get going. Metallica Beyond the Never, great 3D show. It's a good concert, really good, and they've done really well with that. Stephen, Phil, could you expand your thoughts on the Jaws UHD Blu-ray? Yeah, go and buy it.
Just buy it.
Just buy it.
It is
absolutely astonishing. Although saying that, it looks like film. And if you don't like grain and that kind of thing, and you like everything super smoothed out and all the rest of it tough, it looks like the day it was filmed. In fact, Spielberg actually says in one of the extras it looks better now than it ever did in its theatrical run because of what they can do now with grading and so on. And even the extras are on the 4K disc, which is excellent because I hate having to take the 4K out and put the Blu-ray in just to watch the extras. So it's all in one disc as well. So it is really good.
What does the lighting look like in the USS Indianapolis speech scene?
It is consistent.
Swing.
Yeah.
It's
a lot more because and the windows are correct now as well because there was always a color mismatch between the cuts with the outside windows. So that's all been fixed as well. That was actually fixed for the Blu-ray. So
2012, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The first.
But the Atmos. Again, it's absolutely astonishing, and again, it's subtle. It's not in your face, but it just creates the
HDR is what really blew me away. I wasn't expecting that, but for example, the beginning scene when she's swimming at night with the moonlight, and you can see the little reflections on the water of the moon. Absolutely. It looks absolutely amazing. It's a beautifully shot film, actually. I have to say, it's considering the conditions it was shot under. It looks amazing.
I mean, there's some iconic shots in there. I mean, obviously, he copied Hitchcock with the zoom pool.
Yeah.
But again, it would be Jaws without that. That whole sequence there when they're sitting on the beach before the kids gets eaten, it's like a Hitchcock thriller. The way he builds the tension, the way he cuts the video, the way he cuts the film, and it gets closer and closer, and he's on edge and all the rest of it. And then you get the scene. My favorite shot in the whole film is when he's looking out the window on the Orca as the barrel goes past, and it's a reflection of the barrel against the window. So he's looking out the window and you can see the barrel take off. And it's just such a well-compositioned piece. It looks fantastic.
The best thing is you can see Mayor Vaughan's anchor jacket in all its glory. Watching the film again, by the way, I was like, blimey. I mean, Mayor Vaughan, is most politicians' response to COVID, isn't it? It's like, we don't want to shut things down.
Yeah.
Just got to say, Steve Huxtable, $4.99. Thank you very much. Good chat, he says. Thank you. And thank you for your donation. And please click the like button, guys, if you haven't done that already. Like I say, it helps us out. It helps these videos be found on searches and so on, so we can bring more people in.
Sorry, Phil. Someone mentioned, it's not a question, but it was more of a comment, but someone seemed to think that the 10 series LGs are brighter than the 9 series. That has not been my experience. What was the brightness on the one?
No, it's 659.
Yeah, okay.
So 700 is what they aim for with LG. Is what they aim for their panels. That's the average, but it could be anything from 650 to 7.
But it's interesting that the G10 I had and the C10 you've had then have both been in the 600s.
Sorry, Phil, just very quickly, is what you're saying there, is there what individual panel variation between 650 and 700?
Yes, it's why they have LG have the HDR mode where if you go through Kalman, you can actually put your exact measurement into Kalman and then load it up to the hardware on the TV, and it then tone maps to your actual panel. Now, normally what a manufacturer does is they take the average of what the panels give. So like I say, LG, they average it at 700. So normally the tone map would be designed for a 700 nit response, but you can get variations, which is why in Kalman they added in the ability for you to put the actual measurement in, then load that up to the TV, and then the TV has a correct tone map for non-Dolby Vision HDR, so it does it correctly. So
I mean, I'm not surprised that there is variation.
It actually varies from 650 to 750. That's the actual range.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's quite, because I mean, it's been a, when you're dealing about anything with more than one moving part. I mean, for years that you with performance cars, especially, there was, you get ones that were hot and ones that weren't. I'm just surprised that something that you perceive to be as uniform as a giant number of screens being thrown out the door, that it's 100 nit variance. That's quite surprising.
You would never see that. You would never see the 100.
No. Can we be clear about this? Staring through my glasses with limited interest.
No. It's anybody, because when you get into that level of brightness, and it's a demo that used to be done in calibration classes all over, is that from about 70% brightness to 100% brightness, if you change your test pattern and you change the luminous level, and you get somebody to look away and look back in controlled circumstances, they wouldn't be able to tell if it was
a difference.
You can't tell the difference when you're talking about, and when you're talking about HDR brightnesses, again, it's more about how the TV tone maps and retains detail or clips it out. That's the important thing. It's not how bright it actually is in that section. The other thing is, obviously, with OLED, as soon as you get to full screen brightness, it drops to 140 nits.
Fair enough. I take all this. It's not the same as the exciting stories of people buying Hemi Cudas, and some of them were this 175 break up on others.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the rumours come from on forums that, well, they must be, they must be putting the good panels in the higher ranges and the bad panels in the lower. It just doesn't happen. It's the same panel that goes, especially for LG. It's the same. It's the same for Panasonic. It's the same panel. It's just what's driving it behind, and the design differences. That's the only differences between the TVs, especially the LGs, because, like I say, Steve's measured his, I measured mine, and they look identical in terms of measurements that are taken. So, and they're almost identical in terms of nit as well. So it's the same panel being used this year. Right, so let's have a quick look through, see what else there is. Drive-in cinema back here in Dublin. That's great. I'd love to just go and do a drive-in cinema. I did it once when I was about 11-year-old in Canada. I was on holiday with family, and I've got family that live out there. And we did it once, and if I remember right, it came through the radio. The sound came through the radio in the car. You just tuned to the frequency, and it was all in sync. So I'd love to try that out. I think that'd be great. Steve, you seen anything?
Condo 007 has asked about, do you need HDMI 2.1 for HLG? No, you don't.
Nope.
Whether your TV supports HLG is another issue, but it's not a requirement of HDMI 2.1. You can do it via HDMI 2.0.
Yeah. So that shouldn't be an issue, although the older sets are usually 2.0A, and they might not.
Yeah, if you've got an EF950V, well, that might not support HLG because of either it's not 2.0B, or it might just not support HLG because it wasn't really a thing then. But it's not because of HDMI 2.1.
No, it's not that one. What's a proper way to clean your TV screen? So that's Doozy Man
dry cloth.
Dry cloth. In fact,
soft dry cloth. Never, ever, ever put any kind of solvent on a
I've got
TV
one.
screen or
You
clean
might
or
not be able to
anything.
see that because it's green. Actually, it'll look pink on your thing. But I've got one there. Don't put any cleaning solutions on a screen.
No, nothing. Just a soft dry cloth. Maybe a bit of breath, a little rub.
Huff.
But yeah, don't ever put anything on a TV screen.
Gordon Wheeler, if Panasonic have a sensor on the TV that adapts to the environment, isn't filmmaker mode rendered irrelevant? No. As we have explained, and I know different publications are putting a spin on filmmaker mode. It's because the people writing the articles don't understand what filmmaker mode is. Filmmaker mode is a catch-all one button press that switches all the unnecessary processing and image smoothing off. It puts the TV in Rec 709 for SDR and a white balance of D65. I've measured 2 now that have filmmaker mode, and both have been identical and have hit the standards with a delta E of 3 or below. That is the intention of filmmaker mode. It is a one button press or going into the menu and selecting filmmaker mode, and it switches everything off for you, because manufacturers have started, even in ISF modes and cinema home and so on, they have started adding in processing, whether that's noise reduction, whether that's putting it into a smoothing in true motion or whatever, and adding in interpolation and so on, or putting in like you say, the sensors, switching that on when it shouldn't be switched on, or so on. So yeah, filmmaker mode, it stands on its own, and it does use the sensor in a Panasonic TV. Panasonic are the only TV manufacturer who have implemented this, and basically what they do is they work it out on a static metadata. They then work out the tone map and then apply that with the sensor. So they're basically doing what Dolby Vision IQ does, which is it applies the tone map to whatever the brightness is in the room. So no, it doesn't render filmmaker mode. Actually, it helps filmmaker mode on a Panasonic TV. I've had one here for a few weeks, and it does really work when there's ambient light in the room. Obviously, if you're watching in the dark, you don't need the sensor. So you don't need Dolby Vision IQ or the sensor switched on with filmmaker mode if you're watching in a dim environment. It's only during the day and so on where it makes a difference. And it does make a difference, and it doesn't change. I'm a purist. Steve's a purist. We'd always bang on about creators' intent, but there is a problem out there that people don't live in a grading suite. They don't. You don't watch in a completely dark surroundings with the correct bias lighting and all the rest of it. So the sensor modes, the IQ modes in Filmmaker, this is designed to get your TV as close as possible without knowing what environment you're in. The sensor can then work that out, and it doesn't lift the image in such a way to destroy the creator's intent. It's not 100% accurate, but it's as accurate as you're going to get, and I don't have an issue with that, because I think it solves a problem rather than people putting their TV into vivid mode or normal mode or sports mode or whatever, where it absolutely destroys the image quality. So I hope that answers your question, Gordon. If not, ask it again next week and we'll try and be a bit clearer, but I think I've covered everything.
That covers it.
Can I just say,
Son of SJ, Ken, this is what he's written. My question, ahoy, maybe I'll get lucky this week at the 6th time of asking. And it's a very simple question too. No brain cells will be lost answering it. Yeah, what's the question, Ken? What's the question? Will you please?
What's in the box? Whilst we're waiting for Ken to ask the question, Fecundity 10 points out Steve needs to eat a chocolate pretzel. Mallrats reference, and I agree. I think I might just stink palm him the next time we meet anyway. So
I'd be wise to that particular move.
I don't know. It's going to be a while before we meet face to face. You'll have to be on your guard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Stephen Phil, do you think we will one day see a consumer Dolby projector similar to the one in Dolby Cinemas that does Dolby Vision? Why not in the home? Basically cost. I think you've alluded to it. One day, you might get it one day. At the minute, they're having to use 2 massive laser projectors to just get the brightness level and the dynamic range possible. And even in commercial Dolby Cinemas, they can't switch off the exit signs and so on. And any stray light hitting the screen is going to affect your dynamic range and your contrast ratio. So even in a commercial cinema, you're not going to get perfect blacks. You'll be able to do that at home. Whether that'll ever happen, don't know. You'll probably have to pay for it.
I also think that a Dolby Vision grade for a Dolby Vision cinema is not
it's
the same as a Dolby Vision grade for TVs.
No, it's a different grade because obviously you're dealing with different nit levels and so on. I mean,
massively different nit levels.
You'd be lucky to hit 120 nits in a properly calibrated cinema. Yeah, absolutely. Sony does it. No, Sony don't. Not for the home. They don't. Commercially, they might be capable of doing it, and Christie certainly are, and Barco they do stuff as well. But that's all professional, and you're talking 50 to 60,
hundreds of thousands
up to 100. Yeah, for that kind of stuff. So we might see it one day. You know, you never say never because technology moves so quickly these days. But yeah, maybe one day we'll see it. I don't know.
But I will say, based upon, I'm sure you can back me up here, Phil. You know, the frame adapt HDR on the JVCs.
Yeah.
I mean, Jaws. I saw it at the cinema last summer, and it looked vastly superior on my N7 at home. It looked absolutely amazing. So, whilst Dolby Vision may not be coming to projectors anytime soon, what they're currently doing, and particularly what JVC are currently doing in terms of delivering HDR on a projector, I've been constantly amazed at how good they can look.
We need a question, Ken. Come on. We're standing by.
There's lots of complaining about not answering the question, and we can't see it.
Yeah, you need to actually answer the question, Ken. I don't know what the question is. I'd answer it if I knew what it was.
Right, let's see what else it is. Jaws and Dolby Vision, obviously. So Grant Hill was saying he's watched Jaws in Atmos and Vision on iTunes. He says it looks astounding, but it looks even better on the 4K. I can guarantee you that. Just with the bit rates that's being used, it's going to look better than that. Go on.
A completely unrandom thing, Phil Singh, the cat that appeared behind is not the black one. That's his mum. Is behind at the moment. She's called Andrea, and she's fallen asleep on her cushion. So she's black and white. I can't pick her up and hold her to the camera because I'll lose my face. She's not big on being picked up, that one. So just thought I'd set the record straight.
Condor 007 has asked if I'm still buying 3D Blu-rays. Generally, no, but I've been collecting the Marvel 3D Blu-rays. I got them on 3D Blu-ray and on 4K disc because they do some really good 3D conversions. And I've also got the Star Wars films on both formats because it's a sickness and I need help.
There must be part of you that now thinks you're close to completionist status, surely, for the 3D Blu-rays.
I don't really buy 3D Blu-rays in general anymore, but a friend of mine has almost every single Blu-ray. If you're watching this podcast, so I will. He's been going nuts recently, buying up every 3D Blu-ray you can get your hands on. He has a massive selection. I think
must be some absolute bilge, you know.
Oh, there's some stuff in there you don't want to watch twice. But I think he's single-handedly keeping that particular market going.
Right. Denon 8500 or Marantz SR 8012. I haven't tested either of these things. So
they're the same processors inside. I mean, it's the Sound United. They're the same group. So one's a receiver and one is a processor, if I'm right. Sorry, no, it's not. Sorry, it's not a processor, is it? Okay, my answer would be if you're a big film fan, go for the Denon. If you want something a bit more musical, go for the Marantz.
That seems to be it. They tweak. They use very slightly. They use doesn't one use crystal, one uses Burr Brown to do the same thing.
Something like that. There is a slight difference, but it's generally if you want one that's. I mean, if you're a big film fan, I definitely get the 8500.
I do. I mean, on a completely pointless level, I prefer the Marantz design aesthetic.
Yes,
I think that's a good design language. Still waiting for this question. This is
Gordon Wheeler, I've gone back to your first question. So you said after Sky HLG, will you move on to the filmmaker mode? No, you can apply filmmaker mode to HLG on an HDR, or certainly on the LG you can do that. It is an option that comes up when HDR is triggered for filmmaker mode. It's the most accurate. So that's the one to use if you want to see things others supposed to be seen. You need a 4K TV with HLG. Yeah, most TVs with HDMI 2.0B should be HLG compatible, but there are variances from manufacturer to manufacturer. First generation Sky Q2 terabyte boxes do not support HLG due to hardware restrictions. V2 and V3 boxes do. Thanks for that, Grant Hill. We
Jim Beveridge this is directed definitely at me. Steve calibrated my projector 3 years ago. Does it need to be recalibrated? I'd ask the question, how many hours have you put on it, Jim? After 3 years, you might be time for a new bulb for a start. In which case, yes, definitely needs to be recalibrated. How much it will have changed, because bulbs do change over time. How much it will have changed, you can't tell without measuring it. But my question would be, well, contact me directly if you want to, and I can answer that question if you let me know how many hours you've stuck on it in the meantime.
Yeah.
How can I contact Steve for a projector calibration? Bat signal. Only a bat signal.
Bat signal. You'd be surprised how long a projector will hold on to a calibration.
Yeah,
it all depends on hours. I did Stuart's a couple of years ago now, and that was done originally probably 3 years before that, and it hadn't shifted very much. It only needed one button click to bring the grayscale back in. So depending on how often you use them, it will depend, and how the bulb ages, because it's bulb based, you could have two identical projectors and one could skew one way and one be perfect for a number of years. You just don't know how the bulb is going to age. And the important thing with a projector, any projector, is you let the bulb cool properly. So don't go switching your projector on and off quickly. If you're going to switch a projector on, make sure you're going to use it for at least an hour. Otherwise, if you keep doing using the projector for less than an hour on a regular basis, you're not going to do the bulb any good, because it's heating up and cooling down too quickly. So make sure you're going to
crossover between projector ownership and valve amp ownership. That's an unheralded part of AV.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, well, I still haven't seen
Ken's
question, so we need to move on. We need to talk Tom Hanks. And the best and worst of Tom Hanks. We're going to be quite quick here, but yeah, let's go to Steve first, because Steve is more into his movies. He sits and watches them a lot more than the rest of the guys here. So, your best and worst of Tom Hanks, Steve.
Right. My favourite Tom Hanks film is, well, there's two really, both of which for specific reasons. I love Apollo 13. I think he's good in it. Doesn't look anything like Jim Lovell, but he's very good in it, as is the rest of the cast. I just love the film, absolutely love it. I love the story of Apollo 13. I love the way they actually shot a lot of scenes in zero gravity. That's hardcore. I love the film, and I love him in Saving Private Ryan, which again is one of my favourite films. But yeah, Hanks has got a very big back catalogue of films, and he's usually good in all of them. It's hard. I was trying to think of
It's consistent, isn't he?
I'm trying to think of a Duff Tom Hanks film, and it's not easy. I've got to say, one of the films, someone mentioned it as one of their favourites on the thread, but I think The Terminal's not a great film. He's doing a stupid foreign accent in it, and I find that one a bit difficult to watch. But generally, I think Tom Hanks, Tom Hanks always delivers a good performance, and even in films, in lesser films, he's always usually the best thing in it. I mean, he's great in A League of Their Own. Even if you're not particularly interested in the story, he's great in it as a sort of washed-up baseball player. So, good films, there's lots. Bad films, you'd have to go back to his early films, I think, when he was, perhaps a bit less, things like Volunteers and stuff like that, where maybe. But generally, I think Hanks delivers the goods in anything he's in.
Yeah, and the test of a good actor is that you believe him as the character.
Oh, sorry, I've just remembered his worst film, Bonfire of the Vanities. He is miscast in that. It's a terrible film, but he is so unbelievably miscast.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, what I was saying is he's consistent, but for me, I think the one film where he really knocked me out with his performance, and it's not a happy film or anything like that, and I think that's what adds to his performance in it, is Philadelphia. He is tremendous in that, and that really is the scene that sticks in my mind, and it instantly comes back every time I think of that film, is him listening to a piece of opera, and you get to know everything about that character just through that scene in that film. But he's consistent in everything for me. I mean, I could pick out Saving Private Ryan, Big, Toy Story. I mean, Woody is not Woody without Hanks. So,
although quite often with the non-film stuff, it's Tom Hanks's brother doing Woody's voice.
All right.
Yeah, apparently.
I didn't know that one. Mark?
You know what? I really like the kind of 80s, 90s Hanks comedies, and The Burbs.
Yeah, I love The
Whenever
Burbs.
it's on, it's just great fun, and it makes absolutely no excuses for what it is. And similarly, some people don't like it, but I think Dragnet with him and Dan Aykroyd,
Oh God,
I think is brilliant.
Fantastic.
It's the perfect update, and they play it so straight. And Christopher Plummer as a kind of satanic bad guy, and it's brilliant. And Hanks had this kind of period throughout the kind of, I don't know, perhaps late 80s, even stuff like was it Man with One Red Shoe, and there were various ones. They were, he was always good value in comedy, I think, of that era. He has a kind of charisma and a charm to him that you can't really say he ever gave a bad performance.
Yeah, another one I really liked him in was Sully. I thought when you actually see Sully and then Tom Hanks's interpretation of Sully, he nails it. Absolutely nails it. You actually believe he is that guy. Ed?
Right. I'd like to throw. Right. First of all, in terms of worst, it's no fault of his, but I can't watch the Polar Express because he's just horrendous.
That's because of Uncanny Valley.
Yes, exactly. That's just that. That's no fault of Tom Hanks. Doesn't matter what he's doing, but that's the only I mean, over and above Bonfire of the Vanities, I just can't watch Polar Express. I did jokingly say this in the Skype conversations we have, but I do genuinely would like to flag up Joe versus the Volcano as one of the most peculiarly subversive romantic comedies that I think there's ever been. I mean, it attracted ridiculously mixed comments on its release because there were certain people going, this is brilliant. It doesn't do anything that we want to expect it to do. And there's other people going, well, this doesn't hit any of the markers that any film of this nature is supposed to do. It divided opinion. And every time I rewatch it, it's just, I mean, Hanks turns in a great performance and so does everybody else, which really helps. But it's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy it. And then there was something else that flicked up.
Captain Phillips is fantastic in.
Yeah.
I don't find it a laugh a minute, but yeah, I mean,
but he is amazing in it.
Yes,
no,
yeah.
performance is stunning.
I would say that also his turns in the Dan Brown films. I mean, he's perfectly serviceable, but he's in the midst of just a.
I mean, those are not strong movies.
Bilge.
They're really not strong movies, but he makes them watchable. I have watched them. So,
and as nobody else has mentioned it, I mean, Forrest Gump is a masterpiece.
I was going to. Forrest Gump was second on my list, actually, Ed.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, Forrest Gump. I mean, again, that's where it crosses over into pop culture and everything else, isn't it? It's the lines from that and his performance. Run, Forrest,
am I the only
run.
one who thinks it? Forrest Gump is perhaps aging or will age slightly poorly?
It's not aged very well. No, I'll give you that one.
All films where people play, I don't know what the correct term, educationally subnormal individuals, kind of come off a bit.
You just want to use the Tropic Thunder line.
Yeah, I was going to go there for a second then, but I thought, no, I won't.
Not in the current climate.
I do sort of agree, Mark, and yet ironically, given we're talking about Tom Hanks, in some regards, that's the part which is going to be the most long-term problematic. But the construct of the weaving through a historical narrative, is just it remains astonishing. I think it will probably escape the elimination. The cancellation, as seems to be the case for certain items when the mob decides. I think it'll probably get away with it sort of from there. There is something about Forrest Gump, and it feeds into other films, Apollo 13 and so many other things. It's it's a hard thing to trace with actors, but I genuinely think Hanks has it. He seems to be able to raise the performances of people around him. And it's not to say that he's acted against wooden spoons by any stretch of the imagination. He's acted with some great people, but he just seems to be able to raise that. There are people who turn in memorable performances on screen with him who don't always do the same thing when they're not on screen with him. I mean, with regards to Forrest Gump, I mean, Gary Sneeze's Lieutenant Dan, Lieutenant Dan, if we're mispronouncing
Lieutenant Dan.
Perfectly.
You ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan.
But that's one of his stirring performances. And Bacon and Paxton in Apollo 13. Those are two of their best performances as well. I don't think it's a coincidence. It seems to be something that he's able to just sort of do.
He kind of exemplifies the everyman and kind of grounds in just the whole scene, whatever he's in. It's in a similar way. It's tough to think of someone like Philip Seymour Hoffman and think of someone who put in a bad performance in a scene with him. Immediately he kind of grounds everything. There's a believability to them.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, no, in terms of bad things, that's just it. I mean, there's films of his I don't feel the urge to watch again. I mean, The Green Mile.
Oh, no. I knew you were going to say that because I know your opinion on the Shawshank Redemption. So.
Yeah, but The Green Mile's not the same thing, though, is it? I mean, it's 3 hours long for one thing.
It has quite a lot of the same, some of the same atmosphere. If you found one slightly mawkish, then you might think the same of the other, I think. It's... Yeah, I like The Green Mile.
Oh, I'd forgotten about The Circle as well. He's not great in that, but then every single person involved in it should have a long, hard think about.
Emma Watson in it.
I think is Emma Watson the opposite of Tom Hanks? She brings everyone else down to her level.
I think so. She's bloody awful. Absolutely bloody awful. Still waiting for this question, Ken. Come on.
We're running out of time.
We are really running out of time because we need to wrap it up in a minute.
There is one thing that goes, just also finishing up on my random and probably real-time thoughts on Tom Hanks. He does have one advantage over, and it goes back to the everyman thing. So many, male actors have it far less seriously than actresses, obviously, but you don't get the feeling he's ever going to be out of work. For as long as he's able to remember lines, stand up, and move around, there will be roles for Tom Hanks to do. I mean, Tom Cruise is just defying age, reason, and normality.
Well, somebody, Steve Huxtable's actually said, have Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise been in the same film? Now, do you mean have they acted in the same film, or are you trying to say it's the same person?
I think he means acted in the same film, but I don't think they have they? I don't knowledge.
I can't think of anything that they've been in.
I think Tom Cruise will hit the stage where he will age.
He has to sooner or later. Whatever Faustian pact he's made with Xenu will run out.
There'll come a point where, like with a lot of kind of leading actors' faces, he kind of goes a bit Mickey Rourke. It turns that uncanny valley kind of thing.
With Mickey Rourke, it did happen overnight, in fairness, but no, I agree.
Advised in professional boxing that.
Oh yeah,
Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I think Tom Hanks there's an Eastwood element to his work. He's not fighting getting older. He doesn't need to. He just the roles exist for him to keep doing what he's not. I don't think he's ever been in an out and out action film because it's not really what he does. I mean, in many regards, I'd like to see him do some more goofball comedy stuff because he's now at the age where he can be the senior person doing the goofball comedy. But what? Hang on a second. What the hell's going on here?
What?
I asked it again for the third time in this thread immediately before your post. No, we're not seeing it.
No, just type it. Just type it in now, and we'll answer it. So just type it in now. Ed will answer it.
Well,
someone will answer it.
Someone will answer it. So our final thoughts on Tom Hanks. I guess what we're saying is he hasn't really done particularly bad movies. Some of them haven't been great, but he's reliable. He's consistent, and in some of his movies, he's been absolutely astonishing. His acting, and like I say, he's one of these actors that is so well known, but yet you buy into the character that he's playing in the film. You don't think, "Oh, it's Tom Hanks." You buy into Captain Phillips. So, yeah, absolutely. I think
Taken 4. No, I think that might be a stretch too far. But yeah, okay.
So Cruise is going into space. What is the film that they're working on where he's going to go into space? Does anybody know? We don't know. Okay, well, there we go. Right, so I guess that's it for this week. We've given Ken long enough.
Just put it in the podcast quote thing. Put it in bold, and I'll stick it on Notepad ready for here. But there's no trickery going on here. The other 3 people in this podcast will back me up. We've had your comments. We've not at any stage seen the question.
Yeah. ESL Mission Impossible. Do you mean Ken's question or the film? See what I did there. Thank you very much for the donations tonight. It is appreciated. Wayne Moore, you donated £10. Thank you, Wayne. Graham Cartwright donated £3 through Super Chat. Thank you, Graham. Flipper, £10. Top podcast as ever, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Flipper. And again, Stephen Huxtable, $4.99. Thank you very much for your donations this evening. It is appreciated. Before we go, please smash the like button on the video. See, I used the YouTuber term there. Getting used to this now. Please hit that, smash that like button, ring the bell, do whatever you want to do. But it does help us if you support us by doing things like that. It supports the channel. It gets us out there. People can find us in searches and so on. And it expands our community. So we'll answer Ken's question next week. That's it for the AV Forums podcast this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Oh, good riddance, you loony.
Ed Selly.
I think you've had enough tea for today.
And Mark Botwright.
Not today.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please give us a like and subscribe, notification bell, everything I've just told you about. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AV Forums for latest reviews, news and video. Plus, leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes and other podcast channels if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we'll see you again next week.